future direction in my concept. So, about me, I was born here. I'm a regional Townsville artist and North Queensland artist. I've lived, so I was born here, but I lived in the Tully Cardinal area. So then part of Cardinal, Tully is a huge interest to me, and I'll get more into that in a little while as I explore the area particularly through this work. So, I want to talk about the concept next. So the concept's very important. To be able to put any body of work together, I think you need something strong in the way of a concept to pin how you will think about a future artwork, or group of artworks. So this started with my honours degree, where I looked at double portraiture, thanks to Teresia, my model for my double portraiture. But I looked at couples who had the desire to journey to somewhere as a future. And then when I looked at this work, I looked at where if I travelled a path, who has travelled these paths before me? You know, so we look at, in North Queensland, we look at explorers, you look before that, Aboriginal groups, Torres Strait Islander groups have passed these paths. So looking at North Queensland, I took a big scope. So it was the Cape, up to the Cape, which was rather large, but it fitted in with Kennedy the Explorer, which is mostly what I'm connected to for this exhibition. So when I'm looking at this, I'm looking for a sense of place in any particular area I stop at, camp at, and spend a few hours, or, you know, like if I camp somewhere, it's kind of a couple of days, to be able to get a feel about the place. So I'm looking at that sense of past, previous groups, and so it can be derived from this visitation, the sensing, even the smelling, the feel, the breeze. You get an idea of how it feels to be, and then you think of what's previous, and it just gives you a kind of I don't know if it's intellectual thing. I think it comes from inside. It's an emotional thing to be able to get into a site and then work into a drawing. So that comes through lines, but I'll talk about that part a bit later. So in 2011, I did my honours in 2010. So my husband and I took a journey in 2011 through southern states, Victoria and South Australia. I decided we would look at some of those paths like Burke and Wills. You know, they were as almost mythic as Kennedy, so they were a good one to go on because so much is written and contested and whatever about them as well. So we went with the bus and we travelled, and I drew, and there's a visual diary in the first glass that shows some of that work. But that then made me think with some of I came across an exhibition in Horsham where several artists had collaborated, and they had worked on with an expert archaeologist, geologist, historian, geographer, cultural groups, Aboriginal cultural groups. They got together, this group of artists had got together each 4 visitations they had to this particular area out of Western Victoria, and they had looked at these particular spots of the stony rises, the particular phenomenon that's out there. And so their exhibition of their work was a collaborative one, and it really put a highlight and a shine on that area, where North Queensland, we've had a few people have done theses about you know, North Queensland and some about place in North Queensland. Artists hit on place all the time because that's what we're about. We are all explorers. So with that, I thought I could work here. For a doctorate, you can go to an archaeologist, you can go to a geographer, you can go to a historian, but I'm not an expert. So my research pulls into all of those areas to say, I have this bit of information, connect this. It's about connecting, and it's about getting, so there's all kinds of connections. So you connect all this information as you do in places, and then put it into a visual sense. So that's how it came to be. I better keep with my notes because I'll forget things, I know. So then North Queensland interest was, I think, important there's North Queensland gets a little forgotten. We're not the cultural hub in the North Queensland. I just said with cities, Melbourne, that kind of thing. So we need more focus here. So the people, there's a list of those that are interested. So the early explorers, those before them, the first people, Chinese gold diggers, squatters, and that sense of depth that adds to a place is important. So with this body of work, I researched the journals of the explorers. Edmund Kennedy, only in this work. So he goes from, they come in April in 1848 from Sydney by boat to Rockingham Bay, which is just north of Cardwell, and they come inland and they go into the Kennedy Valley, which is a rich source of food and culture. And it's when you come in from the coast, it's a big bay, a big flat floodplain surrounded by mountains. People lived in it, the Aboriginal people live in the mountains, and they used to call it the old people's home, this big valley, because the older people could live there and have food, they could have everything. It was more comfortable to live there than up in the hills. So in the winter, they could go to the beach, catch fish. You wouldn't in the wet season, because the crocodiles will eat you on the way through. So it's a very nice place. But Kennedy went in there, decided he couldn't go up through the hills, came out again, back to the beach, backwards and forwards, and then up towards the Tully Zone and onwards up to the Cape. He went, the idea was to go through this particular area, up to the east coast, up to the top, and then down the western side, and then back down to Cooper Creek, where he had been before following Major Thomas Mitchell's expeditions in the middle. That was the plan. But he only got as far north as the Escape River, which is just south of the Jardine on the east coast, where he was speared. And then Jackie brought some of his work back that was water-sodden and ruined, but that came back to Sydney. That work though, they had, like the journals are piecemeal, they've got, the maps have got just little bits and fragments they are now. But Curran, the botanist Curran, wrote his thesis on it, but he's a botanist. He's not a surveyor, he's a botanist, he's like an artist trying to get all the information. So his work was proved by further writers to not have all the facts he needed. So it's very hard to piece together where a campsite is, where the route was. But in the main, they followed Aboriginal facts. So it was, everything's contested. There's a beautiful book in here in the bookshop written by Sandi Hook, and he's passed now. He's just 2010. He passed away, but he's researched, like the Kennedy tree that I went past as a kid so many times next to the little house that was built by squatters afterwards, and I never knew the significance of that tree, but I remember the tree being there next to this old dilapidated, fallen down house, but Yasi took that away. So anyway, further to this, I'm going to look at other explorers, but I'll stay with Kennedy for now. So trail finding aside and looking for paths, I critique the colonial usurpation of Australia in my thesis. So understanding that explorers' exhibitions were in the main economic ventures for the British power, as it was. So that's a very underlying theory for me, so in my work. So I'm also compiling a compendium of those artists who respond to a questionnaire about a sense of place. So that will be Aboriginal and non-Aboriginal contemporary artists. So I've already been working with the Girigan art community in Cardwell, Aboriginal art community in Cardwell, and they're fantastic. I actually went to school with the director, so it actually helps a little bit. So that's nice. So in this body of work, I'm talking about the Kennedy thing, yes. But it's interesting how many of the parts, like This is Rockingham Bay. They came in at the beach four creeks further north than here. They came down. I cannot say exactly whether it was here, but this is where the path is now. So, and the Aboriginal path comes in sort of meandering. The road goes across the path like a zigzag. So you know you're going to hit it now and then. So you come along, this is about a kilometre in, and this is a narrow road with swamp both sides. If you're on the beach, there's snappers in the water. So I work with photographs. This one here, there's got to be crocodiles in this swamp because it's very narrow. I ran out of the car. That's back in the car. And here, this is a double barrel creek. This is Cliff Road. This is double barrel creek, and the water is quite shallow, but there's no crocodile places. So here, I have grass up to here, walking down this bank. But what happened is this area here is Camp 9. This is Camp 9. So they came through here and you can see the landfall from here was shallow enough to take. They took wagons and all sorts of things. So this area is a bridge up here and the road that comes up here. Just when you follow this street up a little bit, the bridge that we came down from, that is an Aboriginal path. That's the old part of the road. It branches off the highway and goes up there. So it's not very interesting to draw a road, but that's where the Aboriginal town was. So this is Deep Creek. This is very important to me as well because I own land. This is Billiana, Deep Creek at Billiana. So if you know the highway, you go up, there's a rest area, north of Cargill. It's quite a big rest area with a lot of lots inside. That's the Billiana railway siding, and where that is behind that, you walk through the back of that, that's where a huge Aboriginal camp was. So there's a beautiful little creek, there was mechanical, everything to eat there, and that's before this developed as it is. But there's lots and lots of people from this area live all up that upper Murray Creek road. And the way the road is, I have this 10 acres up there as well, so I would have crossed this little creek. But they would have come through here. It's the shallow part, this is the deeper hole. Probably, because you have to say probably, through here and on upwards north. So that's Camp 5 to Camp 10, towards Camp 10. So if I look at what I want to talk about, and I'll take you around the works, so you might have to, but I'll stay with this one. This one is like a visual diary written very large, or drawn very large. My technique is to go into a place when there's not crocodiles and just sit and draw and feel. So, and then and work with it. But with this one here, if you look over on this board, these are the photographs I took a whole pile more so that I could get the information for the last part, but it represents just that little bit at the end. So I'm working at different scales on the one surface and taking it from whatever scale I need, and then I have to actually develop my scale. So it's a visual thing. I do it by where I feel that the trees are. Now, from my double portrait exhibition to this one, trees are much harder to draw than people. So they represent like their diary pages. But it is just one part. So this is all I have done so far in the Cargill area, and the rest of it is the Cape. So if we can. I went up the Cape with some friends, and once we got rid of most of them, I could settle down and work in places. So this is the savannah that Kennedy would have come through. This is sort of up around, a little bit east of Charlotte, Princess Charlotte Bay. So that's the typical savanna that they would have travelled through. So it's dry. It's very almost in the daytime monotone. It kind of needs like the evening, which is hard to photograph. And I've got to look at time of day when I am there. We didn't camp here, it was beside the lake. But when I start to compose, like I had enormous amount of photographs of a lot more than this. So it's about choosing the place where you're going to draw and how you're going to work together with it. So that's the savannah. This one here, the fellow traveller, he is ex-Army Reserve and he did a lot of work sort of Weipa North, but he also had in his maps, we worked with survey maps to find out where Kennedy may have gone. So coming up on the east coast, we looked at where he could go, but this is at Stewart River. Now, there's nothing documented about this, but if Kennedy was to come up on the east coast, there's all these swamps. You can't go through the swamp, but you just cannot take him into the swamp. You can't take him through crocodile-infested zones. So we figured that he had to come across the Stewart River. And just in the middle of nowhere, we pulled off to camp at, he called it a borrow pit. And I thought, it's a borrow pit? It's a borrow pit. It's just a real bushy. He came later on in the night, white hair, big white beard, so he was here, I don't know. And one side here was just this absolutely raked dirt. It was just ripped out to make the roads. But if you look on the other side, was this basalt rock ledge and the reflections in this black water of this very distant background. So I'm sitting there drawing, and there were people before me, it's an Aboriginal community in this area, so they've got the road here, I'm not taking it with me, but it was somebody's road. But you could just swear sitting there, I drew in my visual diary, I've drawn this about 3 or 4 times, this little piece, and you could just sit there, it's so quiet, you can hear it, you can hear the water, you can hear the breeze ripple on the surface, and you could just expect someone come through on a horse. It's just there's nobody around. If I could forget what was behind me. So that was just a real treasure of a find. And I would go and stay there again because it was gorgeous. So, but this is just a lovely place. I'll talk about how I create work in a little bit. I'll just say we just describe a little bit. This one I have done before, and it was sold. I've sold it before, so I had to put another one together. But what was done in the situation of being there, I've done in my visual diary as well. This is a monotype, so this is I'll talk about this process, and then I'll do the mark making process later. This is where you get a sheet of aluminium, you ink on it, gold ink on it, and then you scratch that, you draw back into the black. So you're drawing like a negative photograph, you're drawing in reverse. Printmaking is drawing in reverse, so you actually have to work backwards to what you know from the printmaker, so that's not bored by that. But anyway, that's what we do. So that's part of the same series, and this here is the way I've woven another monotype. When you take a monotype, you take one, and then you take the ghost, just keep working again. And it's always much lighter, of course, because most of it goes on the first part. So I was just playing with it. I'll cut this vertically, and I decided to cut it in different widths to look at how the tone would vary with and the interest points would vary around particular points, like the pot, and so it's got various sections. And I like the interwoven idea because it gets together with my concept of interwoven parts as well. So you've got interwoven tones, interwoven subject, interwoven parts. It's a history behind it. So not looking at this one, a river. Now a Burke Wills trail, it's our bus moving through the land. This is Mount Territory, where Burke Wills. Well, there's a beautiful image of his. You see the Burke Wills. They are moving through on camels and horses. There's a big long line. Well, that's just on the other side of the hill. So this is our campsite. It's freezing. So that's lithographic. So that's, and I'm a right-handed person, so with printmaking, if you do it this way, all your marks go back to the front. But anyway, that's this work here, and I quite enjoy putting the little maps as a direction of where it was. It's also good for future reference, so you remember where it was. That's what I was. And this one is again Deep Creek. So I sat here. This is the first one of the big work. I sat here and I just drew this amount here. So then came back and then drew it onto the stone. The photographic process is drawing onto stone, which we do downstairs. And then it's very, took about a day to draw it and probably a day to print it. So it's a very evolved process. But it is all about the mark making. I'll start onto the mark making because mark making is a very different, in different applications. You'll find the mark making in a lithograph. You're using oil crayons on a very smooth sandstone and you'll have you work with a very light pencil, a harder grease pencil, and they'll give you the light marks, and you work gently through darker and progressively darker until you get the darker tone. You can get a lot of energy with it. I'm still developing my lithographic process, but we've got them installed now downstairs, so I actually have one now at home waiting for my how I get to sit in a place and work out how I'm going to do it. So if you come to a position I can't just start drawing. I'm here, okay, I'll start here. You have to look at it. Observation is tricky because if you look at something, you don't actually see. If I look at all of you, I don't see, she's wearing this, she's wearing that, he's wearing that. You know, it's about, if you sat here and I drew what was in front of me, I would understand more about the nature of what was there. So the more you look, the more you draw, the more you see, the more you feel, the more you listen. All the senses come into that mark. So if you're feeling, also if you're exhausted, you can't do it either. So if you're fresh, you're sensing it, you get a feeling that a line can, really do the talking for you. That sounds really strange to get out there, but I will firstly, if I've got a page this size, I'm going with the blank piece of paper, I will actually feel with my hands on the paper where I'm going to be actually drawing. It's a process so that I'm going this here and I'll feel, and it's an emotional feeling of where things are going to go. I've done it for a very long time, I guess it's my technique. But then once that's down, I'll make some marks about where I want from that. And then when the marks come, you can't just draw a line. If it's a felt line, you feel it. So the faster the mark, more energy. Of course, it's just goes straight up, it goes where you want it. The slower the mark, the more involved and emotional it can become. The harder, more tone adds to that as well. Lighter, pull it back. So that pressure on your stick, it's the same with a paintbrush, it's the same mark making, except it's slightly different with a paintbrush, but it's that pencil and charcoal has a very lovely way of being able to write your message into marks. So that's kind of how I do it. The other thing, this myriad of photographs that I might use, I will have the scene in front of me, and I'll have the camera. So this is, say, this whole area, and I will start with the camera, and I'll go usually in portrait, click, 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 same setting, right through, click, click, right through. And when you come up, anyone who does photography will know that if you do the sky with the trees above it, you're going to get silhouetting. So you get a darker tones at the top. But don't worry about that. And down here, until I've done the whole surface, it's a bit expensive for printing, but I can then have those spread out like the one on the wall, and they get more intense than that, they get bigger. So I can lift a page, look at the tone from here, enjoy that tone, choose, I've got a selection of tones to choose from, and that's how I will work. Same with the colour, I do the similar thing. But generally, visual guide, drawing there. While I'm drawing, I'll also photograph what I'm drawing, so that might be one complete thing. So I've got a reference for later. So, let's try this. When I'm drawing, it usually takes a couple of hours, and I never know where I start because it's such an intense thing. I think if you write it similar, where your thoughts were when you started very different from when you end up. Okay, where did I start? But it's not really important. It's the finished process. But when I'm drawing, if I'm drawing, say, a solitary tree, and the light it's 10 o'clock, and the shadows are coming this way, and it comes to 11, and the shadow's now here, 12, it's not really there, it's just underneath the tree. But I keep drawing. Some people, I do it differently to other people. Some people go and they'll draw the same time of day, 5 o'clock, I'm out drawing for 20 minutes, and they will draw that same scene because they want that same shadow. I actually happen to think it informs the landscape that you're in with those different shadows. You get a whole lot more information by having different shadows in different places, and you learn more about that solitary tree, its mix, its lumps, its whatever. So that's part of my process. So, as I said before, I can't work when I'm exhausted. I have to work when I'm fresh, and I can't work under pressure. But I believe in consistent. I don't believe in the artist, I can't do it today. Actually, just get started. Kind of this way, get started. It's like going to work. So I keep it consistent and constant. So it is all about the mark making. I love charcoal. It's my preferred medium. This one over here, I went to the acrylic. I made colour notes to myself. That's an acrylic wash. It's not watercolour. It actually holds the colour better than watercolour will ever do. It's more like archival. And I'll do charcoal this quick because I went to Italy a month, 2 weeks ago, a month before, so it was under pressure getting it all done. And I thought, I'll just charcoal, I'll be right. And when I started doing it, I started working with graphite. So that's all done with a pencil. So 3 or 6 pencil and sometimes an 8. But yeah, so that's wonderful there. That's my preferred technique for drawing. Portable, very portable. And you have to see it, of course, to travel with it. But so that's about the artwork. And where I'm going from here is I'm looking at Delvin. So he had a lot to do with cardboard. There's another explorer. He actually, if you know the Fletcher River, he had a little township developing called Dalrymple, and that closed down in favour of Trans Towers. So there's a whole bit of history out there. So that's where I'm going this next month. And then back to the Cape end of September with Dave. So, and writing and research, and I'll have a final exhibition. This is an interim PhD exhibition, of the final exhibition at the end of